All right, men and women, boys and girls, and this is the first actual episode of the WayFinder podcast. And so the way the podcast is going to work is for the first sort of few minutes, I'm going to share a poem that I think is a classic, which means it was written maybe 50 plus years ago, and it's still really good and very relevant. And I'm going to share one that's fairly recent. Let's get started. The classic I'm going to read first, and it's called Ulysses by Alfred Tennyson. And it's about, well, if you're aware of who Ulysses is, it's Odysseus, right? It's the romanization of Odysseus. Odysseus being the Greek. Uh, okay, it's a phenomenal poem. I'm going to read the whole thing. It's a long one, and I'm not going to do too much editorializing afterwards because it's worth appreciating for what it is. And then the new one I'll read is called Once the World is Perfect by Joy Harjo, and it's a little shorter. And I think that characterizes this time that we live in, right? We live in a time of sort of division between our two major political parties, and everybody's sort of entrenched, right? And it's sort of like we're living in a sort of like passive civil war, right? So fortunately, we're not arming ourselves and killing each other en masse, right? But we're living in a sort of time where we have our camps and we're all entrenched there. And we need to begin talking to each other. We need to like find a way to make peace again, right? And I think Joy Harjo's poem gives us a way to do that. I'll read Joy Harjo's poems first. Okay, this is she's the poet laureate of our time right now, the American poet laureate, and I think that means something. And she's out of the Native American group of people, which hey, hell yeah, and she has quality poems, so hell yeah. All right, this is called Once the World is Perfect by Joy Harjo. Once the world was perfect and we were happy in that world, and we took it for granted. Discontent began a small rumble in the earthly mind, and doubt pushed through with its spiked head. And once doubt ruptured the web, all manner of demon thoughts drummed through. We destroyed the world we had been given for inspiration, for life. Each stone of jealousy, each stone of fear, greed, envy, and hatred put out the light. No one was without a stone in his or her hand. And there we were, right back where we had started. We were bumping into each other in the dark, and now we had no place to live, since we didn't know how to live with each other. Then one of the stumbling ones took pity on another and shared a blanket. A spark of kindness made a light. The light made an opening in the darkness. Everyone worked together to make a ladder. A Wing Clan person climbed out first into the next world, and then the other clans and the children of those clans, their children, and their children, all the way through time to now, into this morning light to you. Wow, that was Once the World is Perfect by Joy Harjo. I think it's a phenomenal poem, and I think just why it resonates with me is that if we from the Republican side and we from the Democrat side, if we just decide to talk to each other, right, and just like decide to share a meal, like share a beer. I think what's the name? Lucas Jordan has a song like that, right? Where it's like to be from both sides, just sort of sitting down and communicating, right? Oh, we can move way beyond the current situation, right? And something to be said for that. Something to be said for making peace again, right? Because the enemy is not always the enemy is on the inside and on the outside, right? I mean, great empires and great dynasties, anything that's beyond good falls because we get discontented. Not discontented. We get lackadaisical, right? We forget how to preserve the union, right? And the enemies at the doorstep. There are many of them, and it's worth preserving. Okay, that's the new one. And the old one, like I said, is Ulysses by Tennyson, and it's a long one. And if my reading at any point declines, look it up yourself, and I would suggest reading it yourself. All right, Ulysses. It little profits that an idle king by this still hearth among these barren crags, matched with an aged wife, I meet and dole. Unequal laws unto a savage race that hoard and sleep and feed and know not me. I cannot rest from travel. I would drink life to the lees all times I have enjoyed. Greatly have suffered greatly, both with those that loved me and alone, on shore and went through scudding drifts the rainy heights. Vexed the dim sea, I am become a name, for always roaming with a hungry heart. Much have I seen and known. Cities of men and matters, climates, councils, governments, myself not least, but honored of them all. And drunk delight of battle with my peers, far on the ringing plains of windy Troy. I am part of all that I have met. Yet all experience is an arc where through gleams that untraveled world whose margin fades forever and forever when I move. How dull it is to pause, to make an end, to rust unburnished, not to shine in use. As though to breathe were to life, as though to breathe were life. Life powered on life were all too little and of one to me. Little remains, but every hour is saved from that eternal silence. Something more, a bringer of new things, and vile were for some 3 suns to store and hoard myself, and this great spirit yearning in desire to follow knowledge like a sinking star, beyond the utmost bound of human thought. This is my son, mine own Telemachus, to whom I leave the scepter and the isle, well loved of me, discerning to fulfill this labor by slow prudence to make mild. To make mild a rugged people, and through soft degrees subdue them to be useful and be good. Most blameless is he, centered in the sphere of common duties, decent not to fail in offices of tenderness, and pay meet adoration to my household gods when I am gone. He works his work, I mine. There lies the port, the vessel puffs her sail. There gloom the dark broad seas, my mariners, souls that have toiled and wrought and thought with me, that ever with a frolic welcome took the thunder and the sunshine unopposed, free hearts, free foreheads. For you and I are old. Old age and yet this honor Old age and yet is honor and his toil. That closes all, but something ere the end. Some work of noble note may yet be done. Not unbecoming men that strove with gods, the lights begin to twinkle from the rocks. The long day wanes, the slow moon climbs, the deep moans around with many voices. Come, my friends, it's not too late to seek a newer world. Push off and sitting well in order smite, the sounding forest for my purpose holds, to sail beyond the sunset and the bats of all the western stars until I die. It may be that the gulfs will wash us down. It may be we shall touch the Abbey Isles and see the great Achilles whom we knew. Though much is taken, much abides. And though we are not now that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and faith, but strong in will to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. Wow, that was Ulysses by Tennyson. And it's the story of a journeyman who's seen, who's struggled, and who sort of come to the end of his life and sort of knows that the end is not the end, right? Yeah, well, or to age is not the end, right? To decline is not the end. That there's still work of noble note yet to be done, right? And it's sort of, I don't know, it's sort of how I've chosen to live my life. It's not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm not even in a semi good place right now. But I think that if one takes to heart the fact that the race isn't over until the race is over, then I don't know, you can find what it takes to move on beyond the dark day. Anyways, that was the poetry, and now we'll get into the meat and potatoes of the podcast. All right. So episode 1 is gonna be about sort of the state of the nation, right? I'm not Politics is something that I care about because if now that I'm an American citizen, I do take citizenship very important. I take citizenship important. I don't take politics as important. Politics, as I see it, is sort of the technique. It's the scheming that helps us get to what our goals are as a people, right? And that's why you have that's why you have to have different parties, right? Because different people have different goals. Again, it should all be under the banner of what America is, what the Union is. But again, we all have our different priorities and we all have our different ways of doing things, and that's why politics is important. We need to be able to scheme, right? We live in a world where, thank God, right, the sword, the gun is the final solution. It's not, well, it's the last resort solution, right? It's what comes after we're done talking, right? Again, so the goal now is to talk again, so we don't have to bring out the guns. And so this is this series of podcasts that I'm doing. It's sort of my contribution to that, and sort of how I see the nation, and much more than that, how I see the culture writ large, right? Not just American culture, but sort of culture, because every group of people all over the world has their own culture. But it's all, in my opinion, it's all structured the same, right? We have our different classes of people, but again, it's not a vertical hierarchy. It's lateral, really. Like we're all doing our own things, and within those side by side groups of people, Then we have hierarchies because there's some people who, in my opinion, do it better, right? For example, one hierarchy I have is preacher, but preacher can be an imam, it can be a pastor, right? And there's some pastors who I think are more connected to the Godhead, and then the other ones, again, who am I to judge, right? I'm not judging. I'm just saying that for my some resonate more with my spirit, and thus I go more to them than the other ones, and that's sort of what I'm going to sort of show. All right, so let's get into it. And so currently, what is the state of play, right? And this was not informed by me per se, but I've read a few. I love the age that we live in because we are all connected to such vast repositories of the ancients and the current, right? And people who do quality work. And a great book I read is called, a couple of good books I've read. I think they will last because they sort of get to good points. Two in particular, just have given the state of play of sort of politics and the economy, which are the two main things that seem to be actually government and economy, which are the two things that seem to be out of whack, right? One is Why Liberalism Failed by Patrick Deneen. He's a professor at Notre Dame. And another is by Andrew Yang. It's called The War on Normal People. Essentially, what has happened is that we're living in a state of depersonalized community politics and trade, right? And by that I mean that this become an emergent political class, right? So people like Lindsey Graham and like Mitch McConnell, right? People who are just there to be there, like they're just in office, and their goal for the next election is to get elected again, right? And what sucks is that they're in the legislature, right? Because the legislature, meaning the House of Representatives and the Senate in Capitol Hill, they're the most important people, right? Because again, we had a lot of people complaining about the sort of the justice that was elected, Supreme Court justice, and it's like, well, if you're gonna complain about that, you need to know the fact that he's gonna get confirmed by the Senate, right? So, and then you complain about the budget, you complain about war, you complain about healthcare, all these things, right? But they get passed through the Senate, right? So if you really, so that's sort of what this whole thing is going to be about, right? If you really want to change sort of the state of play in America, you want to attack it through the legislature, right? Because the executive has a lot of power, yes, and the judiciary, yes, because they enforce the laws and they keep the laws, right? And they help check the legislature. Well, the legislature has all the power, and that's why the power is so broadly distributed. Right? So the Senate, we have 100 senators, and we have like 235 House of Representatives. So yeah, that power, that really immense power, is distributed across the country among many people, right? And we, the citizens, get to vote them in, right? So that's the first problem, is that sort of like our legislatures become filled with like cowards who are just there to get reelected. And then the sad part is that we, the electorate, we missed the ball, right? We focus so much on the executive, like we focus so much on the fact that Trump is the president, like Barack was the president. Or well, Barack I think did a phenomenal job because he sort of embodied what I see as a president, right? He had an air of Lincoln to him, right? And that says something, right? He was railroaded, but again, that says something as well. But yeah, we took our eyes at the ball, and that's why we have the catastrophe that we sort of think we have right now. Because again, unfortunately, we're living through some the coronavirus situation. That's a bit of a crisis. But again, that's where the executive comes in, right? Because again, the last big tragedy we had, right, of this proportion was the Houston hurricane. What was it? No, the one in Puerto Rico, right? So again, things like so, and again, that's why we need the electorate to pay attention, right? Actually, no. So even more so, back to the legislature, right? Again, so we know that the electoral college is a thing, and yeah, we complain about it. It's like, it's there. You know the state of the game. So work hard so that you can win the game. Because again, the rules are there. Like it's not hidden. It's not that opaque. It's not like it's not an unknown. It's not an unknown. It's actually a known, right? You know that. So if you know that, you can then do that, and then we're gonna complain, right? So the answer isn't to complain. The answer is to win the next game. So at the end of this, I'm sort of going to endorse a few candidates and sort of give suggestions, because why not? I have time on my hands. Anyways, and then so that's the government part of it, and then the next part of it is that we've sort of like, so the way trade works now is that I don't know, maybe it's for convenience sake, but like I mean, we don't buy local as much anymore, because I don't know, it's easier to just sit on a laptop and like click in Amazon, Walmart, right? But like local grocery stores, because again, like it's better if you fund the local economy, because again, I do, and this ideas of localism have come from the Real World Risk Institute and Nassim Taleb and then that whole cohort of people, and they're worth looking into. A series of books called The Inserto, I think, is a masterpiece, and then the Principia Politica, right? They sort of emphasize localism, because if you have local if you do depend more on local, what happens is that, and I'll get more into this, but when you get more into local, what happens is that when a catastrophe like this happens, right, like the coronavirus, well, the big issue is that everybody's highly interconnected, so things are going to spread really rapidly because people need to travel, because again we need to share goods and services between each other. Then you can easily shut down borders. So you can easily just be like, okay, well, New York is going to be separated from Jersey until we figure it out, and Georgia from Alabama, everybody's interconnected, too interconnected, right? But with localism, if you advocate for more, if you support your local organizations and they grow and they become more self sufficient, more self. Nobody is entirely self sufficient, but that exists on a spectrum, right? If you support more local, like that means less Amazon, less Walmart, less. Again, those things are good for certain things, but if you get everything from Amazon and stuff like that, then you basically sort of subjugated yourself to that, and also learn to, like, I don't know, have start a garden. Like, I don't know, learn to rely less on the global infrastructure, because when things like catastrophes like this happen, you sort of need to be able to fend for yourself, at least for a while, right? People were overemphasized. People were not overemphasized for good reason. We talk about savings a lot, but what about, I don't know, savings in the terms of you can actually take care of yourself, right? And I'm going to go into a lot of self development here. It's like, because again, when crisis like this hits, right, money isn't always going to save you, right? Like, money is not always going to save you, so you need other means to take care of yourself, right? And we'll get into that. And then finally, and I think the biggest thing, and that's because politics and trade matter, but beyond that, right, we've seen, at least I've seen, sorry, deterioration of public service, right? Because especially on the local level, we sort of treat our backyard like our own space, like it's somebody else's duty to clean up, right? Like, no, it's not, and you know what? It's not anybody. And then we focus so much on the cosmos, like, oh, the climate is. Sorry, I'm trying to be rude. But we feel like, oh, the climate is changing, and then, oh, the world's gonna burn up, the oceans, and then, yes, those are big problems. But if your streets aren't clean, if you're like, if I don't know, if your kids can't walk to school, if you don't feel safe in your neighborhood, what matters if the cosmos is safe? Like, who, like, again, and if your solution to cosmos level problems is like the antinatalist problem of, like, oh, don't have kids anymore, it's like, and things like that. It's like, but that's what makes life worth living, right? Family, home, hearth, at least for me, right? And you know what? And that's why I'm sort of speaking up now with this podcast, because not because I want to do it or because I want to be an influencer. It'd be nice, maybe, I guess, I don't know, but it's because people are trying to fix cosmos level, like, abstract problems with solutions that affect my local life and sort of like what I want for my life. And you know what? Quite respectfully, they can go find a ditch to jump into, and that's what this whole thing is about. Okay, so that's the current state of play as I see it. If you disagree, please comment. I'd love to discuss further. Okay, so I've given the state of play, and now I want to sort of show a way forward. And I think the way forward, and this was informed very much so by Jordan Peterson. I think, and I do respect the man a lot. And people may not, and that's their business. But I think he came at a time that I was struggling with this problem too, right? And I just didn't know the way forward, right? And he sort of emphasized the idea of understanding culture, which I just see as the general sense making apparatus, right? And we all have our cultures, right? But I personally subscribe to that of the Commonwealth, right? And also my Christian faith. But the Commonwealth, right, which is like the sort of the British tradition, which obviously came from the Roman and the Greek, right? Because again, Britannia was formed from that, like, New London, right, and things like that. So that's understanding the culture that you're in, and then understanding other cultures so that you can talk to them, and so you can, like, know when to, like, cut them off, right? Because again, not all cultures want the same thing, and that's perfectly okay. But again, that's why we need sovereign states, right? Okay. And so understanding cultures is one way forward. And then second, and probably most important, is development of self, right? Know how to individually make sense. So what we're going to see is that you can get data from the news people. So that's why I think the old media, as it's called, should be, right? It's like, it's investigative journalism. They're going to give you data. They're going to give you data upon data upon data. And the thing about data is that there's a lot of data. There's more data than you are, all right? And you need to have a way of filtering. And that's why culture helps you out, right? But then, and the culture is made up of the academy. We're all in the academy. Anybody who's gone through sort of the higher education system, yeah, you're part of the academy. you study something that you should be somewhat of an expert on, right? You may not do it as your full-time job, but you study this thing, you've gone into the depths, and that's my expectation. And if you don't know your stuff, then, well, go back to school, right? In terms of like read more, learn more. And because the individual is sort of the final arbiter, because groups don't make decisions, individuals make decisions, and individuals can refuse, can abdicate their choice to make decisions and give it to the group, right? Which is what we're doing now, which is what a lot of people are doing now, and that's fine. Just know that I won't take you as seriously, right? Because once you abdicate your ability to choose and you give it to a group, right, because you want to be included or other reasons like that, then you cease to be an individual. And when you cease to be an individual, then there's no talking to you anymore, right? Anyways, okay, so that's the way I see it. Data comes from the fifth column, so we need verified good data, right? Like accurate data, and then the academy, which is sort of like the sense making part, the pundits, right? All the way from preachers to entertainers, right? That's the sacred to the profane, right? They sort of filtered this stuff, and I'm sort of struggling with that categorization because there's a guy named Jonathan Peugeot, and he's an artist, and he does sacred art, like so, like carvings, like an icon. So I don't know. So art isn't necessarily profane, and preaching isn't definitely always sacred, right? So I don't know anymore. But I'll figure out. But for now, I'm gonna look at it that way. That art and entertainment on the far end of the spectrum are profane, and preaching, right? Whatever it is, I don't know. The Oracle of Delphi, or your pastor, right? That's sacred, right? And all that is filtered through the self. And then when it's filtered through the self, you can then make an informed decision. And why that's so important is that when you make an informed decision, then you know what legislation you're voting for. You don't need to know all the facts, but once you get a general sense of the idea, and you can make an informed decision, oh, that's awesome, right? Because you can then determine legislation. You can then determine who your legislature should be. You can then determine how policies is enacted, and then you can vote for executives, right? And you can also understand the game better, right? And the key to doing that is that that's how we change how resources and opportunities are distributed in the nation and in the world, right? And because it's not like, again, so a lot of what we've been doing we're doing a lot of marching in the streets, and protests of that kind, and a lot of general complaining, which again, I think there's a time and place for protest. It worked for Dr. King and his cohort, and because, right, uh, it was the right tool for the time, for many reasons. One, because it was probably one of the only few tools they had, right? I mean, there wasn't an option. I mean, they could have gone violent, and then some people broke bad, and that's necessary because it was years upon years of just mistreatment, and yeah, it's okay to break bad, but you need the balance, right? And MLK found allies in JFK and RFK, and and that's good, right? Fine, and even Johnson, Lyndon Johnson. Right? So it wasn't. They weren't all just like protesting the trees. They were all in the streets. They were also scheming, right? And that's important. Okay, so that's sort of how I see the way forward. Is that you develop yourself and then be aware of what your culture is, and then learn how to make informed decisions and act on them, right? Because, okay, so another issue I have is that people say analysis is paralysis. That's not true. I think just a lack of interest is what leads to paralysis, right? Like, and a sort of over complaining, and actually false, and an overdose of data, right, leads to paralysis. Because if you don't have the means to sort through that data, you're going to be inundated by it, and it's like you're not going to know what to do. So analysis, if your analysis is leading to paralysis, then you're doing it wrong. Anyway, so figure out yourself, and learn how to make decisions. Because life is choices. Okay, and so that's sort of how I see it. And then this sort of framework should be applied on the city level, and then the state level, and then the nation, and then the cosmos, right? We shouldn't The solution to fixing the climate issues shouldn't be top down, right? It shouldn't Your solution for fixing the cosmos shouldn't affect how I live in my cities, right? But how I live in my cities should affect how the cosmos works, right? Like, do it that way. That way, you don't disrupt what makes us human, right? What makes us human is the fact that I love my family and my brother, my sister-in-law, my mother, my people, my community, my friends, and that's life for me. Not the cosmos, because the cosmos is trying to kill us all the time, even ourselves, because we're nature, right? And cancer is us basically trying to kill us, and that it's nature trying to kill us. And Jesus Christ, like, if you don't understand the fact that nature is, or like nurturing mother, right, then you're missing something, right? Or maybe you don't quite like yourself. Maybe you should think about that a little bit. I don't know. That's my perspective. Okay, so that's the general way forward, and then for this episode specifically, I'm gonna dive into the culture, right? So what the sense making apparatus looks like from my perspective. All right, so the way I see it is that the denizens of culture, i.e., what I like to call the academy, is sort of it scales right all the way from traditions, family, and friends, all the way to art and entertainment, and that sort of goes from the sacred to the profane, right? Traditions, family, and friends are very very sacred. That's what I hold the most sacred, right? And the art and entertainment, that's for that. Oh, but again, that can cut through the noise sometimes, right? But again, it's not the ultimate arbiter. It's not what I'm ultimately trying to protect, right? Because again, my family, my friends, and tradition, we can entertain ourselves, right? I guess what I mean by art and entertainment is sort of like general pop culture or cultural entertainment and art. Like that's what I mean by profane. So with my family, my friends, and my traditions, we can entertain ourselves. Okay, so from the family, traditions, and friends is the next step up is preachers, and I said that can be you make your choice, right? And that's why we need conversation between the different faiths because we need more tolerance in this country. No shooting up temples, no shooting up churches, no shooting up mosques, right? We should all be able to practice our faith in peace. And then from there it's the philosophers because we need philosophers because again theology is well and good, right? We all have our theologies. Actually, so that's the thing. So faith is different from theology. So philosophers should in fact deal with things like theology and ethics and logic and metaphysics, meta reality, and aesthetics, right? And then from there on we have lawmakers, executives, and law enforcers, right? And that's the legislature, the executive, and then the judiciary. And then beyond that, the people that really make life tick, right? The artisans and the inventors, and then the finance and business people who help scale those things and help make it so that we can move things forward. And then science and engineering that give us standards of how we should make and build things because that's necessary. I don't think standards come before invention. I think invention happens and then standards happen because again, then we formalize it, right? Science and engineering is a formal, it's not an art. Science and engineering is not an art. It's formalism, and that's good. We need formalism, right? When we know form, because again, right, we not everybody needs to reinvent the pencil. The pencil is actually a very hard thing to make, right? But once we've made one person has made the first pencil and they figure out the manufacturing process, you can then scale. Science and engineering, well, that's the tricky thing. Right? Science isn't always about scaling, right? Science is about discovery. But again, the process of discovery is somewhat actually it's somewhat the process itself is in fact very standardized, right? But again, the key there is hypothesis generation, right? And that's the part, that's the magic, right? That's the art to it, right? And engineering that also designed too, right? So because again, you can make a chair what in 10,000 ways. I give you 10,000 ways to make a chair because what is a chair really, right? But like a thing that you sit on, right? Okay, that's not what I sit on. You can sit on anything, right? Okay, and then that's where constraints come in, and that's where. Okay, so maybe I should move this a little bit. So science and engineering, and then finance and business. Yeah. Actually, no, first move teach, and then teachers, right? Because they play such a valuable role in society. Because again, they're sort of they're sort of they're sort of close to being entertainers, right? Because I think so. One of my favorite teachers. That I guess general world we know is Richard Feynman, right? And the man was a showman, right? But again, he got the points across of physics, right? But he also like made it entertaining, right? And he also made it so that the implications could be known, right? That's how I see the culture, and this is what we are, right? Everybody falls into this category somewhere, and maybe I'm missing some stuff, right? So again, I don't have like healthcare workers specifically there, but because I see them as science and engineering, right, and artisans and inventors, right, I see them as that like healthcare practitioners. Don't have to. I don't. They're not their own separate field, right? Because again, okay, what is a doctor? Somebody who knows a bunch of physiology and then has good customer service, and they can do differential diagnosis, right? That's a whole that's a whole lot of science and engineering, right? And being a good person, right? So again, like healthcare is a very important field, but again, I think it falls into a broader category. Okay, so that's sort of like the content, like the lateral part of it. So that's just if you think in Cartesian coordinates, right, which is like the uh, uh maybe not Cartesian, yeah, Cartesian coordinates, x y axis, right. So that's sort of the x-axis. That's sort of and then the y-axis then is like people who I sort of respect, right? So on the bottom right, it's people who are very very smart, i.e., very intellectual. They know a bunch of facts, and they're clever too, so they can put things together in a way that they can make models and stuff, right? But and they're very interested in quantification of stuff. I call them intellectuals yet idiots. I stole that term from Nicholas and Sim Taleb, and they're funding it as IYIs because again they're smart, but they don't see the implications of what they're doing for the real world. And a lot of that is like sort of like the economist, right? Like that's sort of like his big targets. And you know what? Yes, right. You know the types that led to the crash of the economy, right? Because they were making bad bets, right, with other people's money, right? And then they still got money out of it, right? So yeah, IYS, right? You know, and a lot of the physics types who think that I don't know that looking at the cosmos is more important than like I don't know cancer, because again they can probably help us figure it out quicker, right? But again, people have their interest, and that's fine. But don't think that what you're doing, don't think because you're smart that you're actually providing value. You're not necessarily doing that. And then the y-axis from the very top as you increase it, people interested in implications and meaning, right? And that's where it's at. If you can really understand why what you're doing matters and how why it matters for the human race for all levels, right? Local all the way to the cosmos level. And if you can share that and communicate that, then I'm interested in what you have to say. Not because you're smart or you're intellectual, but because you see the implication, you see the value, you see not the use, that's different. When you see sort of where it fits into the to the grand order. Oh, there it is. You see where it fits into the grand order of life. Because again, there's an economist I like. He does a podcast called Econ Talk, and he wrote a paper called it's about the ensemble, right? Not about the individual anymore, right? And so the if you sort of don't see, because again, if you pursue your career because it like gives you like gets your rocks off, good for you, I guess. But if you don't see where what you're doing fits into the grand ensemble of things, right, and how we all sort of fit together, right, and how we all sort of contribute to each other, and how we all sort of provide value for each other. If you don't see that, then I'm not as interested in talking to you because no, the word isn't selfishness because I'm a little selfish too. Like I have my own interests. We're all a little selfish, but that's a sort of deeper narcissism, right? That sort of doesn't that refuses to see the world as it actually is, which means that we're stardust, right? At a certain level of analysis, and if you cannot if you cannot understand that, then well, you know, you're worth talking to, right? Because I don't know, because we're all in this. It's cheesy, but we're all in this together, and people who understand implications and meaning know that we're all in this together, right? And so that's what's worth considering. That's actually I thought I would take much longer, right? But that's really how I see culture, and the culture and the interesting thing is that culture and society like they're two different they're two different things, but they're two Venn diagrams that meet at the center of a nation, right? So America is a distinct nation, right? It's a sovereign nation filled with immigrants and locals, right? But it has a distinct culture as well. Again, it embraces other cultures, but it has a distinct culture, and that's something I would get into further down the line. Okay. Okay, so sort of how just to feed off of what I was saying previously is that I sort of have a way of like of weighing the opinion of different pundits, right? Because again, everybody in the culture is a pundit, all the way from like except like my pastor here in Macon, Georgia, to like Joe Rogan and Dave Chappelle and Kevin Hart and all those guys, right? You know, those the pundits, they have something to say about our society, right? And so and you can see this sort of this two-dimensional plot I have here, and what we'll call the y-axis, which is the vertical going from bottom to top axis. People who are focused on localism first, and by localism I mean like individual families, friends, community. I care about it. I trust them more because they know what's really valuable in life. And then people who are focused more on the cosmos and the global sort of landscape next. I'm less interested in them because sure they have a point. We don't want to go the way of the dinosaurs, but I'm not gonna sacrifice individual life and sort of like community of friendship and like love and family for the cosmos. I'm not going to. I will never do that. And if that's your solution to sort of the global problems, then no, we're not gonna. Well, we're gonna talk. And if you're not being reasonable, then we're gonna fight. And it's okay. I think that's perfectly fine. Okay, and so on that axis, I am more trustworthy of people who are local, who think local. For am I local? I mean, just you, me, home, earth, right? And then I trust people less who are focused on the cosmos and globalism. And then on my sort of horizontal x-axis, towards the more towards the right side, people who are interested in implications and meaning, I trust more than people who are interested in facts and what I call facsimiles. And by facsimiles, I mean simple models, right? Overly simple models, like models like, for example, which like take the human being like in economics and call him or her a consumer, right? Yeah. No, that's not true. We're not just consumer. We're I'll get into that further too. But what is man, right? And by man, I mean human being. What is human being, right? We're not just when you take human being and simplify them all the way to consumer, so you can run a model and a simple simulation, so you can so you can make some kind of like assessment and some kind of like recommendation, then you've lost me because you refuse to. that's a that's a refusal to see. Okay, so yeah, that's fairly straightforward. I'm not gonna list names here because I think that's not what I'm here for. I just want to show how I sort of see the landscape and who I trust more versus who I don't trust as much. Right? Because again, it's trust is sort of what holds a community together, right? It's what makes us fight together. So if you think about it, before I move on from the slide, every American citizen should think of themselves as being in the reserves, right? And because again, by God's grace, I hope there's no overtly big war, right? But again, when World War II happened, right? Although women didn't have all the same rights as men did, or the same opportunities as men did, they stood up for the war effort and they worked. And people of color did. And again, like everybody got into the war effort. So something really bad happens again, we're all going to go into the war effort, right? And that means that to be in a war together, we have to trust each other, right? And so we need to know what it means to trust again, right? And this is how sort of how I trust. Again, like I trust everybody to a certain degree, but then I always verify, right? Yeah. All right. So that's how I see the culture and sort of the valence of it. All right, and that was sort of the culture. And again, I thought I was going to take much longer, but something I can dive. I'm going to dive more into it. So I'm going to release a magazine in June, and sort of going to take all these points and put them into a more formalized form. Because the podcast is just for me to sort of think through things. To think through ideas, and eventually I have a few guests on who can help me, friends who I trust, who can help me think through things, and we'll do that. But so for now, it's just me thinking through some ideas. Okay, so that was the first part, is understanding the culture, and then the next part is sort of what should guide inform decision making, and this is the self, right? And so the way I see the self is sort of three parts: the body, which is the animal nature in us, right? Because again, we're all, I mean, we have shared ancestry, right? And we're yeah, to some extent, we are animals, right? Our physiology is like it's our physiology. It's what it is, right? But then the mind is separate from that because the mind emerges from that, right? Like the fact that I can choose to fast for 30 days straight. My body probably doesn't want me to do that because it needs nutrients and it needs nutrients to survive. So it doesn't want that. So while I can make that choice means that my mind is separate from my body. It's again that's not the most like rigorous like philosophical analysis, but it gets the point across. And then my mind will fail me. So the thing, so I sort of have, it's not really beef, but it's sort of like a contention I have with Nietzsche. Nietzsche being one of the greatest philosophers of the past what, 200 years. And he was very very strong in will. And I think willpower is that's in the mind, right? Well, willpower will fail you. Willpower will fail you because we're only so strong. Like no, and because again, I don't know if this has been like verified with additional studies, but there's studies that shown that the state of your body, right? I mean, if you're hungry, if you're tired, blah blah. Again, it's not perfect, right? But the state of your physiology affects your willpower-ness. And then when that fails, when your willpower fails, because it's gonna fail eventually, you need something else to pick you up. And for me, that third thing has been my faith. And in this slide I call it spirit, right? And we need something, right? I don't care if you pick like I don't know Eight Noble Truths of the Buddhists, or you pick like Sufism, Rumi being a big practitioner of that, or like Judaism, like, and like, I don't know, like King David, Solomon, Abraham, like all those stories, and sort of how Yahweh picked them up, right? Or you pick Jehovah, Jesus Christ, right? Or you pick, I don't know, you're an atheist, and but you still understand that Lady Fortuna is, she's going to turn the world upside down, right? Like Lady Fortuna is something that the Stoics again, so that's the one I'm really big on to, Stoicism, right? Because big thing about Stoicism, and Rand Holiday is a good source for that, is that cool thing about Stoicism is that they, while again, like, yes, they're somewhat agnostic slash atheistic, right? They don't quite believe in the monotheistic God the same way that I, as a Christian, believe in God. But they do understand the fact that life is that I don't know, that the gods are playing dice with our lives, right, sometimes, right? And that sometimes, things are not going to go as you plan, and things are not going to go well, and that the arbitrary chaos of life will just upend your life, right? And so you need something more, right? You need something more. You need certain practices, and certain like spiritual practices, like the one that they have is called memento mori, right? And it's just remember death, right? And premeditation malorum, which is like sort of like a meditative practice, which when you look forward in time, or you play disaster scenarios in your head, and you sort of accept them, right? Sort of this uneasy acceptance of the arbitrary chaos of life, right? And it will happen. Somebody's gonna take a plane and ram it into to your building. Somebody's gonna take a plane and ram it into your base. Somebody's gonna, even us, right? Somebody's gonna take a nuclear bomb and ram it into your island, right? So how do you deal with that, right? And because at that point your body's failed, your mind, it's probably gone, right? And you need something else to pick you up. And for me, I've chosen my Christian faith, but obviously with lessons from Yahweh, lessons from Sufis, right? And Islam culture. Not as much because I haven't looked too much into it, but definitely from the Greeks and the Stoics and the Buddhists so much, and then even a little bit of Hindu culture, and definitely some atheists like Camus and even Ayn Rand to a certain respect, and definitely Richard Feynman, right? And Carl Sagan and people like that. And I've had many teachers, but I've chosen my Christian faith. But again, I think having something to pick you up is phenomenal because your mind will fail you. That's it. So the key is develop your body because it affects your mind, and develop your spirit because it affects your mind, and develop your mind because you need to be able to navigate yourself in this world and make informed decisions. And for the mind, there's a guy I like a lot, Shim Parrish. Jim Parrish has a book called Mental Models, and that's really good. And people like David Goggins, like Jocko Willink, and Joe Rogan, John Peterson, people who've sort of talk about sort of like what it takes to, and Rachel from Brown, right? It's like what it takes to have a mind that's capable of weathering storms, right? Because storms are always going to show up, right? And that's just one level of it. And then the next level is having logic and rigor, being able to, like, I don't know, sit still and read a legal document and know what you're voting for, right? So have those, right? So you can make informed decisions. Because adulthood is characterized, in my opinion, by being able to make informed decisions, right? Okay, so that's the self, and yeah, and so I think we're the final slide now, and that took much less time than I thought it would take. Yeah, fantastic. So for me personally, I've sort of developed my filtering system. I think again I'm not perfect yet, and that's why I still listen to people and read books and talk to as many people as I can because I'm still sharpening my sword, right? But anyways, I've sort of created my so again this podcast was focused on the nation, government, and politics. And sort of this is sort of like my choices, right, for the city level. So I live in Macon, Georgia, and one of my high school friends and colleagues is running for district commissioner. I like him well enough. I like him well, and so I think he'll make a good choice. His name is George Thomas, so I'm going to vote for him for district commissioner. And Clifford would be. I'll look more into him, and I'll vote for him for mayor. And the big one, right? I think the Senate from Georgia. I think our senators are cowards, and I think they need to be upended. So I am endorsing again. Who am I, right? But I am endorsing Thursday Tomlinson and Shane T. Hazel. Thursday Tomlinson was mayor of Columbus. She did a bang up job, great job. And Shane T. Hazel he understands the Constitution, and he was a Marine, and he's from the Libertarian Party. And for what it's worth, we need more voices in the Senate. We need people who are gonna go against Trump and not be worried because of party lines, right? And then for the state of the nation, I think I'm not. I always thought I was, because I see myself as a conservative progressive. I want to move the ball forward, but I don't want to do it at the cost of home and hearth and traditions and faith and all those things. I don't want to sacrifice those things for what, for faster internet and, like, I don't know, like all the bullshit. So so I saw myself as conservative for a while, but I'm not. I'm progressive. I lean more towards the side of the conservatives. And with that said, I have chosen to endorse, and at least I'm going to cast my vote and let me do some campaigning if I can for Bernie Sanders. But I think Bernie needs to be barbelled, and by barbell I mean he needs to be sort of like counterweighted with somebody who is not Bernie, right? Because, and I think the best choice is Andrew Yang, right? Because Andrew Yang is a capitalist du jour, but he's not a but he's pushing towards. I really highly recommend this book, The War on Normal People. He's pushing towards a more humane capitalism, right? And then that will work perfectly well with like Bernie's like sort of socialist agenda. So more on Bernie. Since I'm here for a few more minutes, sort of more on Bernie's agenda. Why it won't work in America? I've lived in the southeast. I've traveled the southeast, and I've lived in the Midwest. Traveled the Midwest a little bit. And I've lived in the Northwest, and I've traveled in the Northwest a little bit. And I've seen the South, Southwest, and I've seen the Northeast. America is not is one country, e pluribus unum, right? But out of many, right? The regions are different, and we all value different things, and we all have different priorities, right? Which means that some sort of like top down one solution to all our healthcare education needs is not gonna fly because it's not gonna fly because we all want different things, right? People in Seattle want to do different things. The way people in Macon want to do things versus people in like Chicago versus Milwaukee versus Bozeman versus like it's different. So we need, and that's why states' rights are valuable, right? But not for like, but again, you can use it for bullshit reasons like Andrew Jackson did, right? So you do need the nation to set some standards, right? Some baseline standards, right? So we don't go off the rails. But then each region, each state can do it differently, right? And that's why I think Bernie needs an Andrew Yang to sort of like to counterweight him, right? Because again, we need to for the national level, for the executive level, we need to go back to team of rivals, like some Lincoln stuff, like it's not about putting people in there, and that's my biggest issue with Trump. Not because he's like, I mean, I have many issues with Trump, but one of the issues I have is that he's filled his cabinet and his top level folks. He's playing some mafia game. He's good, right? That's what the mafia would do, right? You create like a small inner circle of your people, and it's like cronyism all the way, right? But no, we need to go back to a team of rivals, right? So Bernie needs to consider people like John Kasich, right? Pete Buttigieg, right? And Tulsi Gabbard's badass. Michelle Obama, maybe Barack wants to come back. I don't know. Maybe Hillary wants to come back, But people of quality and character and who know the game, who know the law. People I don't consider Jocko Willing for something, like who know, right? But who are not gonna just like toe the line, right? And you need people who are not gonna toe the line because you don't know all the information, you don't know all the facts, you don't have all the ideas, you don't quite know everything, right? So you need people who are willing to check you, right? And that's what the cabinet should be again. And that's my suggestion for the national level. And finally, at the cosmos level, I think that we're trying. I think the person doing the best job right now, as far as the cosmos is concerned, is obviously, and this is not like novel, right? But it's actually two people, right? So I don't remember his name right now, but there's a kid in not kid, grown apparently. I mean, he's Dutch and he's cleaning the oceans, and that's awesome. And Ray Dalio has some stuff too in regards to the oceans. And then you have Elon, who's like trying to show us the way towards cleaner energy, right? Because while preserving the fun stuff and good stuff in life, right? Because again, like I said, we shouldn't fix the cosmos by sacrificing what's so good about human life, right? And then the one group that I particularly loathe is the anti-natalist group, and they're pushing for like less children, less babies, and because again, that costs us, and like even like I don't know, to a certain degree, people who like advocate not eating meat, right? It's like no, there are many reasons to consider not eating meat, but if that's your reasons for the cosmos, then I don't quite agree because I don't know, it's enjoyable, right? And I don't know if you're not living a life that's like if you're being too self righteous, right? And that's my issue with the anti-nays and a lot of the people who push vegetarian and vegan diets. There's a lot of self righteousness there. It's a lot of virtue signaling, self righteousness, and I'm not for that, and that's sort of like why I'm against it. No, actually, not just that, but also because if you can't see the value of sort of the fun things in life, then you don't know why protecting them is worthwhile, right? And so that's sort of what I see for the culture, and sort of how the nation affects the culture and how society obviously affects that. Right? So three Venn diagrams, if you think about it. So culture being in the middle, and then actually the nation being in the middle, and then society and culture affecting the nation, right? And society is made up of individuals and cultures, and well, cultures are sort of vague, right? But they're not vague, right? They're the artifacts, right? Oh, that's it. So in one bin we have the artifacts, and in another bin we have the people, and the people and the artifacts interact, and the people and the people interact, and the artifacts and the artifacts interact, and that builds what the nation is, and the nation is the actualization of the meeting point of culture and society, and it's worth they're both worth understanding, right? And the nation is worth being a reflection of the best of our culture, the best of our society. So that's it for episode one. I hope that made sense, and it made more sense to me. And the next one I'll sort of cover how the role that the I don't know what I'm going to cover. I think education or capitalism. Actually, I think I'm going to cover capitalism next, because again, this is sort of the nation, the government, and the society, and a big part of that is, again, money matters. But how do we do it in such a way that it's fair? Because again, not everybody's going to produce as much. Not everybody's going to produce as much as a value, right? And that's worth rewarding, right? Again, the person who gave you the iPhone versus the person who, I don't know, didn't I don't know, the person who littered the street, right? Should they deserve the same reward in society? I don't think so, right? And we should have standards. We should have standards, right? And we should reward. But again, you don't need Daddy Warbucks, right? You don't need like Scrooge McDuck anymore, right? So there's obscene inequality, right? And then there's fair inequality. I'm all for fair inequality, right? Because again, we've all been in school and we've all wanted good grades, right? But again, we've all, not all of us, but some of us have been like a little miffed when we don't, when somebody gets, we're all a little miffed when people get rewards they don't earn, right? Exactly. But the reason with capitalism right now is that, yeah, it's a little obscene, right? You have somebody who's richer than most countries, and then you have people who are starving, right? And yeah, that's obscene. So that's worth tackling. And so I believe that's what we're going to tackle in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed, and I look forward to you subscribing. And if you have questions, please comment or reach out to me via my email. It was a pleasure, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.